In this season of Tastemakers, you are going to meet culinary entrepreneurs who are building, growing, and giving back, all while creating something delicious.
Wednesdays at 1:30 p.m. We're local and enlightening. You're watching WLAE-TV, celebrating 40 years of New Orleans public television.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams. Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans, LSU, New Orleans, all on tap today. Joining us on our program, again, two of my favorites, Jude Young, CrescentCitySports.com, 1067 The Ticket, host of Ticket Tonight, and Jared Paul Joseph, WGNO-TV Sports. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Always good to have you two guys on the program. We'll start with you, Jude. Tell us all about CrescentCitySports.com and 1061 The Ticket as well.
Well, I go with the latter because I have the unenviable task of following in your footsteps on the airwaves from 6 to 7 with Ticket Tonight on weeknights. And of course at CrescentCitySports.com, we're awfully busy year-round with high school, college, and the pros, trying to serve you as a locally owned and operated sports website, news operation, broadcast operation, you name it. And you mentioned LSU New Orleans. Yes. I'm still getting used to it. I am the voice of LSU New Orleans men's basketball.
And of course, 1067 The Ticket, a sports block, local sports block.
Right,
2
absolutely,
p.m.,
yeah.
Right, and of course the 3 tailgaters on Saturday, and of course probably more live sports than any other station in the city, right?
Right, 6 straight hours when we don't have games on, and we have plenty of teams that we're the home of now, and that may be growing, so we're excited about that. But 2 to 8 weekdays, from Ken Trahan to Eric Asher to yours truly to Deke Bellavia. I think we do a good job of covering it all, don't you?
Yeah, I think we did. But I'm a little biased. Just a bit.
Me too.
Jared, welcome back to the show. You know, I love everything you guys are doing over at WGNO-TV Sports. Plus, you got a little bit of addition now as well. Tell us about all the great programming and tease us a little bit about what's going on again in terms of the podcast.
Oh, indeed, we do, of course, have our weekly sports podcast now. We have 2 of them, What's Going On in Sports, which, of course, breaks down the weekly headlines that are going on in both the Crescent City and the state of Louisiana. And now we have Go Black and Go to Weekly, where we talk about things about the Saints, which is a unique time to start the podcast, considering we're in the dog days of content. But we're talking about, Saints. Just this past episode, me and a fellow reporter at WGNO, John Sokoloff, we talked about the 5 greatest wins for the Saints since 2000. And, of course, that includes nothing but but Aaron Brooks and that upset against the Rams, who were the defending champions. Of course, the Dome coming.
Yes.
Obviously getting the kick to go to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. So just a lot of mixture within there. And of course, what's going on in sports does highlight all the things around the area. We'll be expanding podcasts as we go along throughout the football season.
Awesome.
And obviously, when football season comes on the horizon, we'll be having once again the scrimmage show, then the jamboree, and then kicking it off once again with Friday Night Football. Of course, you can catch all of our content on WGNO.com and also seeing us weeknights for Sportscast 6 and 10 at WGNO.
Home of the SEC.
Yes, indeed. Home of the SEC. And we also, of course, whenever LSU plays in primetime, a 1 hour post-game special breaking down what LSU does against their opponent. Going to have that already. 2 games in the tuck already. Season opener against Clemson. That'll be on WGNO.
Yeah.
Week 3, the SEC opener at Ole Miss, also on WGNO. 1 hour post-game specials for those. WGNO Sports Director Richie Mills and our analyst Lester Ricard, Tulane alum.
Yes.
They'll be talking about the game and, of course, what Tulane does as well throughout that hour.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I don't work for them, but on those Saturdays, college football, you can lose the remote in the seat cushions of your couch. You can throw it away, literally from morning all the way to midnight.
All the
You've
way.
got SEC and all the coverage you want, including
It's
LSU.
awesome.
Pretty cool.
A lot of eyes on WGNO TV Sports for sure, no doubt about that. All right, guys, we will start with, again, the former University of New Orleans. I have my colors on. Now LSU New Orleans. Jude, obviously, again, being part of the university. Look, guys, y'all know my feeling on this. I felt like, again, yes, there have been issues with the University of New Orleans since Katrina, and a lot of that is funding. Maybe they didn't have the right people in charge, but at the end of the day, I just felt like, again, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater when you take away the identity of the school, the University of New Orleans. I was around when it transitioned from LSU to University of New Orleans, and how big this was for the city of New Orleans. It's the flagship university for the city of New Orleans, and of course now this transition. Most people believe this is a good thing for the university, and that having the LSU name and colors will help them as well. Your thoughts?
I think that the former is definitely true because of the big picture for the school, the idea that there will be proper funding and attention to detail is what's needed, not just as far as the academic offerings, but the big picture of campus life, facilities. All of that is in desperate need of upgrading, and there is a master plan at work to be able to make that happen. And a lot of people I know, including in athletics, which has long been ignored out there in the big picture, are really excited about it. And obviously the LSU brand can't hurt you, but I think finding the balance for the campus, and that's not really an athletics concern. If we win, everything works out. But if you're able to balance the idea of you've got the LSU brand behind you, but your own entity that's still the big public university in New Orleans, that combination should work magic if you handle it right. And like you said, it does come down to leadership. Whatever you thought of past leadership, that's over. That's in the past. The present and the future in the hands of different people who I think have good ideas.
Your thoughts, Jared?
I'm a little conflicted with it because obviously I do agree that having the LSU brand with it will elevate things. It'll get you more funding, it'll get you more attention, more traction, more exposure. But it's really a bit of a downer that New Orleans doesn't have that flagship university that has its name on it exclusively anymore. Because I've only known UNO as UNO, not LSU New Orleans, and I love the blue and the silver, the Privateers. I've got enough purple and gold with my alma mater in Baton Rouge, so I feel like it just doesn't seem right to see the Privateers donning new colors. And I mean, we know that other branches of the LSU educational system have had success in athletics. I mean, LSU Way just got their softball head coach hired over at Southeast. So we know LSU West in baseball, they had an undefeated season a couple of years ago. So obviously there is some attraction, some attention, some success when you have the LSU brand outside of the red stick. But you would hope that in the Crescent City, it would stay to a degree individual and neutral from that.
And these are two gentlemen that cover you on athletics. Obviously, again, Jude, part of it. WGNO TV has always covered you on athletics. So they keep the name of the Privateers. Again, they stay in the Southland Conference. All stays the same there. But I would agree. Look, I've said it on my radio show. There's a difference between the New Orleans and Eunice and Shreveport and some of the other satellite LSU schools, again, in terms of the identity of those schools. And being, again, the largest city in the state, there is also something to say about the branding of New Orleans on your chest when you're going to other cities as well. Again, I'm wondering how that's going to work out going forward.
I think it's important to note they want no references to LSUNO. It is LSU New Orleans.
New Orleans, right.
To be able to emphasize that part. And the current leadership that I've heard from are adamant about being able to be the school for the region, but also to be able to recruit nationally and even internationally. New Orleans is in such a unique spot, and other schools in this city are able to do that. It's time for still the flagship campus as far as public education on the highest level in New Orleans to step up and fill that void.
So in calling a game, have you figured it out yet?
Oh, I haven't gotten actually a specific set of guidelines.
Right. Will it be the privateers? I mean, that's a mouthful, LSU New Orleans.
It'll be a lot of the privateers. I've used New Orleans extensively because of branding in the past 7 or 8 years because of the importance of that, especially with the ESPN Plus product and trying to get attention beyond the region. I'll figure it out. It'll be all right.
Yeah. No
I just want to call them first because that means they've got more points than the other guys.
There you go. That is perfect. Look, it's a transition period for the university. It could be an incredible thing for the university. I just felt like the identity could have stuck around rather than, again, throwing that out. But again, it is now LSU New Orleans. All right, we'll start with the New Orleans Saints here. Saints, again, 3 weeks from training camp. They announced their training camp schedule. Again, we know that the Saints are going to be playing, again, are going to be having 3 joint practices, again, with the Jaguars, also the Cowboys and the Rams, which I think is a good thing. Your vibe going into training camp. I did a monologue on my radio show yesterday, the difference a year makes, again, with how we were feeling going into last year's training camp with the New Orleans Saints, a team that, again, that was coming, bringing in a new coach, new quarterback, etc. And then, of course, the Pelicans, which, again, looked like they were going to be a playoff team last year, and how that script is flipped. For New Orleans now, for the Saints, it really looks like, again, most people believe that this team is on the rise, and that year 2 under Kellen Moore will be a great leap for this team. Your thoughts?
Well, you get to this point of the year where you're hyping up for training camp and you start thinking about, again, talk about the big picture. When it comes to where the Saints were 12 months ago, you didn't think you would be in this spot, but you didn't know what you had in Kellen Moore as a head coach and the staff he put together, and you didn't have a franchise quarterback. And I think we all agree that the Saints have their quarterback to move forward. And we're excited to see just how franchise he can be. Can he be special, elite in the NFL? The fact that he can be really good and was able to perform so well last year with limitations around him on offense make you think that the sky could be the limit for him. So it makes sense that we're getting excited and we believe that they can be better. Just the idea of temper expectations. You want to drive in the fast lane here, but you don't want to get pulled over for reckless driving, right? Fans can be as excited as they want to be, but understand it's still a roster that when people look at it around the league, if you want to follow podcasts, if you want to follow ratings from people who've worked in the NFL, it's all available out there. The Saints are still rated as a roster in the bottom third of the league. It helps to be in the NFC South, and that's a reason for optimism. It helps to have a last place schedule, and that's another reason to be excited about what the record can be. But when it comes down to it, just calm down and see exactly what Tyler Shuck is, exactly what the sophomore slump could be with teams seeing what Brandon Staley was doing with his defense and reacting to that. It's a constant case of playing chess and evolving and trying to keep up with the NFL, and for them not to figure out your tendencies. We got to see if year 2 is a step forward or maybe slows things down a bit. Anything's possible, and oh, by the way, one word changes everything: injuries.
Yeah, no doubt.
I am cautiously optimistic about what the Saints will do this year, and a lot of it does hinge upon what we saw with Tyler Shuck last year, and then in addition to what they surrounded him with. We have to keep in mind he was thrown into the fire. If LSU fans may remember, Brandon Harris, his first start at LSU was on the road at Auburn. That's never what you want for a quarterback in the SEC. Tyler Shuck, first start on the road against the Rams, and so that was not the most ideal situation. We know his tenure as QB1 began during that second half against the Tampa Bay Bucs at home, but his real first start was against the Rams. Since then, he had been able to elevate. He had done some things that Spencer Rattler hadn't really been able to do. He didn't just stabilize, he was able to multiply. And I think because he was able to have success, because he was able to set rookie franchise records by only starting 9 games and still being able to go out there, get a 4-game win streak, have a 5-4 record and 9 career starts already, with an offensive line that had multiple injuries, a running back room with multiple injuries, a wide receiving room with multiple injuries, a tight end room with multiple injuries. All those areas have gotten depth they've been elevated, they've been enhanced. You go and you sign David Edwards, you draft Jeremiah Wright for the offensive line, you sign the homegrown guy out of Jennings, Louisiana, Travis Etienne, to go along with Alvin Kamara if he's still there. And then you have a wide receiving core that you added a plethora of skill set to, not only when you traded for Jalen Polk and Devon Vele last year, but you go and you draft Barryon Brown, you go and you draft Bryce Lance, and of course you get Jordan Tyson 8th overall. This is a wide receiving core that has a lot of speed around it. Oh, and don't forget at tight end, they also got Oscar Delp, another speedster for tight end, and also signing Noah Fant. I think this offense has a lot of explosive capability, and I think we're going to see a step up in what Kellen Moore can do with them simply because he'll have all the tools available to him, and he also has depth now. So something does happen to Cesar Ruiz, who, if you remember, Mickey Loomis was very critical of during his year-end presser earlier in January. I think that having a Jeremiah Wright to be a depth piece there is very key, and consistency with David Edwards to replace what was a rotational door at the opposite guard position of Ruiz is also key. And then defensively, I think they turned that corner, obviously, when Chase Young came into the fold. Whenever he came in, that defense turned that corner. Now you're trying to see how can this defense perform and do well and avoid the injury bug, but nonetheless, how can they perform and do well at a consistent basis against some top-tier teams that they do and face them down the stretch? Because obviously they do have the 4th place schedule, but listen, all the strength of schedule stuff happens based on what was last year, and you never know how teams could be entering 2026.
Jared, last year for both Moore and also Staley, it was kind of an installation year. Again, guys are learning the system, understanding the system. It's year 2 now. Your expectations for both those coordinators, again, and of course he's the head coach as well, in terms of offense and defense, and what we will see this year.
Well, the Saints defense finished about a top 10 defense last year. I'm expecting them to elevate into a top 5 unit. I'm expecting the Saints offense, if they stay consistent, they stay healthy, they stay on that trajectory, I'm expecting them to be at least in the top half of the league when it comes to yards, when it comes to points per game, and developing a better ground game as well. If we have some health in the running back room, if you get a guy like Travis Etienne to be the bell cow back, and he's not spelling, but Alvin Kamara is spelling him, and maybe Devin Neal finally stays healthy, maybe Kendre Miller finally stays healthy, but if not, Travis Etienne has a history of staying healthy. You can rely on him a lot more. Alvin Kamara can make a good 1-2 punch with that. And so you add those guys in there, and you get them behind that offensive line that has Kelvin Banks Jr. returning. Hopefully Eric McCoy is healthy. Right. Taliesin Fuaga, I wouldn't even say it was a sophomore slump as much as it was a lot of bad injuries that kind of hampered his sophomore season. And then you add, again, David Edwards in there. That's a 6'6" guy at guard, a 6'6", 300-pound guy at guard. That reminds me when they had Mekhi Becton over there at left guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were mauling teams with that offensive line and getting the ground game going. So I'm expecting to see an offense that can establish the run, take advantage of the RPO, and also have great explosive passes down the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think the run game is going to be the biggest difference we'll see in this offense in year 2. Your thoughts?
Well, it's twofold with the offense. They need to run the football more consistently, and the investment in the offensive line over years should pay off when you have a guy in Etienne who, when he's been healthy, he's been consistently productive in the league. But on top of that, explosiveness is so important. They have enough options so that they can exploit now what defenses might not be good at. You can go game to game and say, hey, this game we want to go 12, even 13 personnel. We have tight ends of different skill sets that we can look for matchups here. Now they have wide receivers of all shapes and sizes who have different skill sets that you can utilize there to help Chris Olave and make his life easier. And what you saw is Tyler Shuck, unlike Spencer Rattler last year, was able to find the explosive plays that were there. That was the difference on an offense that still under Shuck most of the time struggled to score. In the NFL, you can't put together 10, 12 play drives consistently and thrive that way. You've got to be able to come with the big play, the 20-plus yard play from scrimmage that really makes a drive. And they've got enough weapons to be able to do that. I think the offense is going to take a step forward, and I have very little doubt about Kellen Moore. On the defensive side, though, you still worry about Demario Davis being gone because somebody's got to fill that leadership void. I do love the Caden Ellis fit, and I think his ability to rush the passer will just add to what they can do with the front seven and try to give quarterbacks different looks. I still worry about the secondary. I know Kool-Aid McKinstry thinks he's elite, and folks out there saying, well, okay, we should see it now at this point point in your career. But I look at the secondary as a whole. I worry about what happens if Julian Blackmon gets hurt again, having injury issues the past couple of years, including his first with the Saints, because Jonas Sanker, if he works out as your big nickel star, that's great, but then you could have a void right behind him where he was playing if Blackman's not available. I don't know if you have the depth there or at corner. Martin Emerson, will he be healthy in the version of himself that we saw with Cleveland that was really the best cornerback on this roster based on what we've seen from the others. So I still question that, not the coaching, not Staley, not Moore, but the idea of folks have seen what we did defensively last year. Can we be more multiple like I think the offense is going to be to attack people?
Yep. All right, the big question going into camp is, will Alvin Kamara be a New Orleans Saint? Right now, again, he's the 6th highest paid back in the NFL. Do you think they're going to work a deal out where, again, he's going to take a pay cut? Do you think he plays under his current contract? Or do you think he's cut or they move on?
Total guessing game at this point, but I think they want to get him into camp and see him. They want to see him in the preseason. They want to see him in these joint practices and then make a decision, because they can always then use that money if, for example, Chris Olave's new deal isn't done between now and the start of camp. It might happen during camp. It might happen before the regular season opener. They don't need that money right now. They have flexibility, about $10 million in cap room or something like that at the moment, so they can wait and see. They'll get him out there in the dog days of summer in August and see, does Calvin Kamara have anything left? Because if he does, and he's playing 30% of the time to the close to 70 that I think you're going to get from Achane, paying him like a top running back in the league, that balance could be perfect. If not, you're still only filling 30 to 35% of the time if Achane's healthy. So I think they're going to just see what they have with him at this point, because running backs age in dog years. And it looked like he lost about 10 years last year, and if he loses 10 more, he's not an NFL running back anymore.
I think he'll be on the roster. And we all have to keep in mind that he was at OTAs because there was a clause in his contract this year that he had to be at all offseason workouts to guarantee he'd get all his money, or he would receive deductions from said salary. I think you're very much right when it comes to Jude. You're right about what they're going to need to see out of him in training camp. How productive will he be? How much can they rely upon him? And he has had some aging happen to him, a couple of bad injuries to end the last 2 years. People don't like to hear the fact that he's coming off back-to-back career low seasons, but there's also back-to-back seasons where he's ended the years injured. And so you get a guy like a Travis Achane in there. You don't pay him to not be a bell cow back or to not take majority of the running back snaps. But if you get him in there and you pair him right with Alvin Kamara, that's one thing. But if you don't see it panning out with AK-41 in a great way, then that's when you need to rely on your investment in the draft and hope that Devin Neal stays healthy, or maybe Audric Estime takes a step up, or maybe Kendre Miller can stay healthy beyond a couple of games into the season for, finally, so he can enjoy the success that we've seen him have some ability to have. So I think Alvin Kamara will be on the roster. The question is, how long will he be there? And I think that's a bit of a mutual decision when it comes to his commitment to being out there and how much the front office wants to keep him there, especially with his current salary tab.
$10.7 million dead cap hit if he's cut. They could spread that over 2 seasons as a post-June 1st cut if they'd like to for cap reasons. But the question is, do they have the depth that they can afford to get rid of a Kamara?
No, because the depth is unproven. The only person who is proven in this running back room is a healthy Alvin Kamara and the new guy coming in, Travis Achane. Other than that, you love what Audric Estime did last year. He was really good. But again, Kendre Miller has a history of being injured. And we remember 2 years ago during the training camp in Irvine, California, whenever former head coach Dennis Allen was there, Kendre Miller gets hurt the first drill of training camp. And then what does he say after practice that day? Dennis Allen says you can't make the roster in the training room. And we know that that's been an injury issue for him. Devin Neal was injured last year as well to start the year and to end the year. He had a few games in between where he was able to be productive and be in the lineup, but they don't have the depth that's proven at the moment to say you can afford to lose Alvin Kamara.
Same question.
When it comes down to it, I think you can if you don't think he can play anymore, and you're going to have to piece it together. It comes down to, again, what version of Alvin Kamara is there now? Because if you don't think he can really help you, and also the idea with Kamara that in a Kellen Moore offense, and we've got a long track record with him, he doesn't really feature throwing the ball to the running backs with diversity with the playbook like you see with a lot of really good offensive play callers. So, if Kamara can't provide that true 1B solid backup who can run between the tackles anymore. It's just not in him. Then you're just going to have to piece it together and keep your fingers crossed that Achane stays healthy. I think you're right when you say Kendre Miller is not only a good player, but if he's healthy, he's an X factor on this team. He's the second most talented running back on the roster right now, because we saw last year when he was playing, he was better than Alvin Kamara. He could be a savior of sorts. Hopefully that's not needed, and Achane earns his money by being available. But if not, after that, they'll just piece it together and try to have an offensive line that creates a running game that keeps the trains running on time, so that Tyler Shuck and the weapons in the passing game can do their work. You can survive it.
I will say it also would depend on Kellen Moore, because we have seen the statement of Alvin Kamara aging, but we did see him looking like he took a few steps into the fountain of youth during that first couple of games when they looked like they were going to go on a Super Bowl run, when Clint Kubiak was offensive coordinator and everybody was healthy. And so the question for me still remains to some capacity, is Alvin Kamara aging, or has the offenses around him just not been good enough? And so if the offense is healthy this year, there's no more installing it, just improving it. Maybe we see Alvin Kamara have some revitalization. He'll be able to go out there and show you glimpses of that boom and zoom combo he had with Mark Ingram as well.
Any concerns about the pass rush on this team?
A little bit. Can Chase Young take that next step forward? Did Cam Jordan just empty his tank last year, being able to do what he did? Carl Granderson's a good jack-of-all-trades, solid player, but if he has to fill in and be more of a factor off the edge, you're concerned about that. The guys they brought in, like Jennings, the linebacker, and of course with the trade with the Raiders for Tyree Wilson,
right.
He's not a speed edge. He's a power set-the-edge guy, it seems like, who can reduce down inside, and maybe was miscast as a prospect and with the Raiders. So I don't know if you have the pieces there that get you excited about the overall raw pass rush, but when you're a team that's built on zone and different looks, you have an addition like an Ellis who can bring it as a blitzer, and you're able to match up again. That's the thing about the modern NFL. It's not, there aren't too many guys that you just throw out there and say, hey, go get them, like Micah Parsons coming off the edge and say, this is our weapon, we have them. They're rare in the NFL. You got to have guys with different skill sets. You got to have the multiple ability to say, okay, in this game we're going to play this guy more because the matchup works out well. And you can see there's intentionality with that, with the way they built the roster. This is a front office that's working really well with the coordinators to be able to put the type of roster together that the Saints can give different looks in different weeks to be able to attack and try to win games.
I think I'm not as concerned about the pass rush because they do have, of course, Cam Jordan coming back, and you do want to make sure he didn't empty the tank and that he can continue. He did say 2 years ago he had the worst defensive line coaches of NFL career, so maybe it has something to do with the revitalization.
Think you like Todd Grantham too much.
But maybe it has something to do with him being able to be productive once again and having a team high 10.5 sacks. Chase Young coming in there, I think he is the ultimate X factor because, again, this defense turned a corner when Chase Young got healthy. So Chase Young gets in there, he gets 10 sacks as well to go alongside Cam Jordan's 10.5. Carl Granderson had, I think, 6.5 last year, and he had a plethora of different statistical measurables where he was really being dominant and fluid and very much a versatile piece in this Brandon Staley defense. And then you had Kate Nellis in there for an interior pass rush. You draft Christian Miller for the interior as well out of Georgia. I think that this pass rush will improve and continue to be better. It's all about just allowing it to continue to mesh. And then the secondary will also be a factor with that. When we talked about it earlier, the fact of Julian Blackmon will stay healthy. Because if he does, he played through that same injury during his last year with the Indianapolis Colts, but it hurt him and he couldn't play this past year with the New Orleans Saints. Now you want to see if Blackmon stays healthy. They give you a good rotation when it comes to having Julian Blackmon, Justin Reed, Jonas Sanker, and then maybe the bookends as far as the secondary goes to cornerbacks. They do enough to allow the pass rush to really get home on a consistent basis. But maybe we see some good glimpses game one, like when Cam Jordan immediately attacked Kyler Murray in week one against the Arizona Cardinals and the ball gets rolling there. It all just depends on, how they're able to use one another. And we know Brandon Staley's a great defensive coordinator. He's had great defenses when that's been his only assignment. And so I'm going to lean on them being able to improve that element of the defense.
And there's real reason for optimism that Chase Young, the best is yet to come.
Yes.
Because it seems like he's been around forever in the NFL, but this is about to be his age 26 season. Think about that. So he has not hit his ceiling yet. He has not reached his prime. If he becomes a 15-plus sack guy, which he would have been theoretically, if he'd have played all last season, potentially. Look, that is a guy that suddenly defenses are fearful of, not just scheming to say be aware, but fearful of, and that opens a whole lot of doors for those other pass rushers. If Chase Young becomes a special player this year like he was expected to be when he was drafted at the very top of the first round, hey, this is a defense that I just love the idea of the way they played so consistently last year when the offense at times wasn't giving them a lot of help. They made opposing offenses earn it. If you have explosive drive-ending guys and turnover-forcing guys on top of that like Young, you can take another leap this year.
All right, final question on the Saints. The Saints lost two of their most significant players on defense in Demario Davis and Alontae Taylor. Have they done enough to fill those spots?
I'm going to say for Alontae Taylor, I'll say yes. I think they have done enough. And even if you do have some injuries going on in the secondary, they did draft Lorenzo Styles Jr., the brother of Sony Styles, and nobody knows that. Nonetheless, you got somebody to go in there and help add some depth to the secondary, along with free agent additions as well. But it's very hard to say so far if they've gotten enough to fill the void of Demario Davis, because he is coming off of, I believe, a career year in tackles. No matter how long he's played in the NFL, he seems to be ageless. And the biggest issue for me isn't just the play, it's the leadership. It's the accountability. It's the knowing that you have that guy. That's a man amongst men. How do you replace that? And yes, Caden Ellis has been a part of, that linebacking core that learned from Demario Davis. Can the student take the place of the master? That's the biggest question here. And it's not about the play style, because they play very differently. It's about the leadership, being able to hold everybody up and accountable, lift everybody up, and make sure that you dot your I's, you cross your T's, you put the little squiggly line of the Q's. That's everything you want to see happen when it comes to a leader. I'm not entirely sure they have that yet, and that will have to be proven during game time.
When it starts with Taylor, look, like 6'7", or how VAR is supposed to work in the World Cup, I don't get it. I didn't get why he was such a potentially coveted free agent and valuable on the market. I find him very replaceable. I felt he was a jack of all trades, master of none type, although a pretty good blitzer. I wouldn't have paid him. I have no problem with that. I'm sure they'll figure that out. And I know it's an important role, mind you.
Absolutely, that defense.
But again, if Jonas Sanker winds up being that guy and there was a plan for this all along, then they'll look like the geniuses they hope that they are. As for Davis, you're not replacing him. You're just doing something different, because you got to take Danny Stutzman going into his second year into account as well. I think he and Ellis are going to have to complement each other really well, and I think Pete Werner is going to be phased out here. I don't think he's a fit for the style of defense that they're looking for, and let's face it, he's another jack of all trades, master of none. So if those two work well together, Stutzman and Ellis, then you won't miss Demario Davis. Well, much. I think you're going to miss his leadership because you just don't replace that.
That's the biggest thing. That's the void there that everybody's worried about, is the leadership. And again, in the locker room, on the field, plus his ability to diagnose plays and to get his teammates in the right position. That's something that Ellis is really going to have to be able to do going forward. You are watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Jared Paul Joseph of WGNO-TV Sports. Jude Young of CrescentCitySports.com and 106.7 The Ticket are our guests. We'll take a pause. When we come back from here from our underwriters, we'll talk Pelicans, LSU, and Tulane. So stay tuned for more Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll be right back.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Jude Young and Jared Paul Joseph, our guests. We turn our attention to the New Orleans Pelicans. The draft has ended. Free agency has started. And now, of course, again, the Pelicans are looking to try to upgrade this roster. A lot of smoke about possibly, again, trading either Trey Murphy or Herb Jones. Up to this point, it looks as though Dumars and Weaver have really overvalued their players, which I'll say right now, it's not a bad thing, okay, when you start looking at, again, where the Pelicans are. But with that said, there is a need to get a big that can defend the rim. They need more shooting, and they don't have, again, the money under the cap to be able to go out and be a player in free agency. They re-signed DeAndre Jordan. Whether he's going to be a guy that's on the court this year, or he's simply going to be, again, a player coach on the bench is still unknown. But the question is, how does this team get better without making trades? And of course, with some of the players that they have on this roster, they're trying to trade, like Poole and Murray. Those contracts are so arduous, again, that most teams won't take them on. And they don't have the draft picks, honestly, to give away, to attach to those players to get rid of them as well. Man, they put themselves in a tough position. They had $50 million in available cap room if they don't make the trade for Poole in this upcoming free agency period. They would have had the 5th and 8th overall pick in the draft if they don't trade for Derek Queen. Again, the moves that were made initially by Dumars and Weaver, they're not looking good, and they have really put restraints on this team in year 2 in terms of the ability to get better. How do they?
I try to put a sunny side to what the Pelicans have done and where they're at on it, because it's so easy just to continue to throw dirt on them. But the reality is here that Jamal Mosley is the big acquisition of the offseason. And he's got to have the opportunity with his coaching staff to come in and evaluate the veterans on this team and to see if there's more juice to squeeze. From DeJounte Murray, is he going to be happy here like we saw him pretend to be happy here once he realized he had to play last year coming off the injury? Because if he's happy and playing well, he's a leader, can be a really good mentor for Jeremiah Fears, because that's an important piece of the puzzle, but Fears isn't ready quite yet. And of course, Ian Williamson, we have to see. I just like the pieces overall individually of this roster. This isn't a team that's bereft of talent. Do they have the superstar that you'd love to have, leader at the top? No, unless Zion's able to suddenly do that at age 26, and maybe he can. Again, just age 26 like Chase Young. He hasn't reached his prime yet. Maybe it can happen under Mosley. But like you mentioned, if they could at least the rest of this offseason find a way to address the center position with a starting caliber player, so Yusmisi could be the solid energy backup that other teams in the league, including the Knicks trying to replace Mitchell Robinson, would have loved to have Misi. They weren't coming with enough for him, obviously. That's sort of stating what his value is. But if you can find a big who can defend the rim a little bit, help you in the lane as a help side defender, and maybe stretch the floor, or at least bring some post-up game to the table, they're looking for the former. You always want that big that can stretch the floor and open up spacing offensively. Then at this point, see what you have, see how the pieces can fit together with new sets of eyes and the coaching staff, and see if they can progress here, because there's no quick fix solution here to start winning in the Western Conference big, but you can at least get into the play-in conversation with essentially what they have, I think.
I think they can, but I don't want to put lipstick on a pig with this one. I think that it was a massive overstep with the way things played out with what Joe Dumars and company did over these last 2 drafts, because I do think Derek Queen has tremendous upside. I think Jeremiah Fears does as well.
Me too.
But you miss out on 2 top 10 lottery picks in a draft that had A.J. DeBonta, Darren Peterson, Darius Acuff Jr., one of the most talented drafts we've seen in the modern era. They're comparing this draft already to the 96 draft, the 03 draft, and you have no first-round capital in it. And I think that is a major misstep. We were told about the aggression, the rumors of what this team was going to be doing during the offseason. A lot of smoke, very little fire, some embers at best, and we haven't seen enough. We haven't seen a team that's been aggressive about making sure they get the right pieces to go in there to make sure this team can compete at a high level. And you do want Jamal Mosley to get the chance to go in there to evaluate this team. But I also think it would have behooved them to make sure that if you're going to fire Willie Green 12 games into your tenure as Executive Vice President Joe Dumars, fire him 12 games into your first year under that title for the New Orleans Pelicans, maybe find a way to better set up the head coach you really want. And I don't think it was the best setup for him. Now, I do love we get some hometown guys here for the Pelicans. Jerron Pierre Jr. out of St. Aug. You get Solomon Washington out of Carver. 2 great guys who know one another. They can play off of one another. And you need some rotation as well. So I think Jerron Pierre going into the backcourt, being part of a good 3-man rotation with both DeJounte Murray and, of course, Jeremiah Fears, that will help a lot. But I don't think that they've done enough to make sure that they can put themselves in the right position. I think DeJounte Murray is good to be in there because he's a great defensive player. And, he could be a little bit of that leader. We saw that chippiness, that edge. You want your leader to have a little bit of that nasty in him. And that's what he showed against the Toronto Raptors last year. But otherwise, you need to add other pieces to it. I think Trey Murphy III should be highly valued. If you can get 5 first-round draft picks from Mikal Bridges, why can't you get something comparable to that for Trey Murphy III? Right. And lastly, Mitchell Robinson was available. You could have tried to talk to him about something. If you need a center, Jonas Valanciunas is available once again. Right. Maybe try to bring him back, but you need somebody.
But they're not coming.
They're not coming. That's the issue.
Valanciunas is going to end up going to LA. Right. Mitchell got a chance to go to the Celtics. Right. Yes. Championship organizations, sure. It makes sense. Look, when it comes down to it, you said it. 2 drafts. The first 2 drafts were screwed up by Joe Dumars in the eyes of most, unless Derek Queen winds up being a lot better than the 13th overall pick and a guy that they're right on. Sure. Is he the next Djokovic? I guess that's the closest thing you can kind of sort of. Right? That's what it has to be. Right. Or you can't justify what they did in year 1 because it's hurt you in year 2 already, and it may hurt you for a while moving forward because you missed out on a deep draft.
Yeah, I would agree. Guys, it's getting kind of late early when you look at where the NBA is right now. Okay, teams are starting to put together 5, 6-player deals, 6-team deals. Again, a lot of teams are again, when you start looking at the free agency market right now, it's starting to get slim pickings. Not that the Pels could really be again a player in the free agency market. The question is, how do they get better now?
They still have pieces that they can trade.
They do have pieces they can trade. Yeah. And if they don't take advantage of that, if there's nobody who wants those pieces, then you have to just really hone in and hope that Jamal Mosley's defensive-minded mindset will carry over and make this team a lot more chippier, a lot better as two-way players collectively. Derek Queen, he may have that Nikola Jokic upside. We also need to see him be better on defense. And you can get guys to be committed to defense, but you got to instill it in them. And so if he becomes a better defender, the guy played, I believe, all 82 games last year. So we know he has the stamina already. That's why him and Fears aren't playing in the summer league. It's because they played 82 and 81 games respectively. And so you get those guys in there, you get them to be great two-way players. You get on the court a lot more being a good defender than you do being a good offensive player. We've seen a lot of defensive guys who are offensive liabilities be on the court compared to vice versa.
I can't see it. I try to see it. Zion and Derek Queen playing together. I just don't see a scenario, no matter how hard they try and how committed they are defensively into the system, I don't think physically they fit together. So that's another issue that they're going to have to solve with a coach who's adamant on being top rate in the NBA defensively. Look, they're going to have to be patient at this point because the NBA is like the weather with different teams and front offices. If you don't like it right now, wait a little while, it's going to change. Agreed. And suddenly everybody wants to reshuffle the deck. You find the right trade partner, you've got the assets, you can make it work. But they're going to have to be patient now because they tried to force the issue a little bit last year in the draft. People are scratching their heads about that. Now they're sort of stuck in a really salary cap gripped NBA at this point. Right. So they have potential, but they have to have teams get from thinking about it to desperate. Pelicans can't be one of those desperate teams.
And they were desperate, and that was the problem last year, the desperation.
Yes.
Getting players with physicality that play with a football mentality. There are few and far between on this roster now. So how does that work with Mosley when you're handing him a team that, again, doesn't have the attributes that he's looking for, again, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
It's going to require the two words that I think all Pelicans and New Orleans basketball fans are tired of, and that's grace and patience. They're going to have to give Jamal Mosley grace to figure out this roster and the patience to instill what he needs to instill into these guys. And it will be a very hard jigsaw puzzle situation to figure out how to get these pieces in the right lineups and the right rotations when you have a guy like a Derek Queen trying to play alongside a Zion Williamson and there's no consistent guy to be the center for them. Yves Missi, a great shot blocker and a great energy guy, not yet consistent enough to be a reliable starting center. And I mean, you don't know who they could bring back with a Carlo Makovich, if he'll be able to come back and be in that fold as well. It's very much a confusing time for them simply because there's no solidification when it comes to the right kind of players.
You have to improve on the margins at first. You can try to revamp what you do systematically, and sometimes you just cause more problems than it's worth. I think what you can do, for example, with this team, because you talk about effort and commitment to defense, be a good transition defense team, first of all. You may still struggle in the half court because you don't have the pieces that fit together and still get the job done on the other end of the floor. But if you talk about that sort of effort, be a better defensive team rebounding group that is all 5 players on the floor. Those 2 things can improve your defense right away, and I think Mosley and his staff are going to demand that of these guys, and the guys who don't do it won't play. And you should see that change right away.
I will say this. There was a report earlier this week that said the Pels were looking for 4 first-round picks for Trey Murphy. They're down to 3 now. Don't get in desperation mode. Again, stick to your guns. Do not give your players away, especially, again, your top players. As Jude mentioned, things change in the NBA very, very quickly where you could possibly make a deal down the line. But you cannot go into this season without a legitimate big man and another scorer to be able to help, again, Trey Murphy. Now, is that Jordan Poole? Can he be better under Mosley? We'll see. Again, as you mentioned, again, with Murray, can Murray be better under? I guess we'll find out. But right now, again, as you look at this team, this roster has holes in it.
Well, is Derek Queen going to play more of the 5 and survive as a 5 defensively? Then you got to think about what you're going to put out there at the 4 as far as athletic guys who can run, maybe be weak side shot blockers, be good at the double team. So again, it's pieces to the puzzle fitting together. It's not a guarantee, well, this guy's a 4. We're talking about positionless basketball in the NBA. The roster that the Pelicans have, they're going to have to think along those lines of positionless and create more problems for their opponents than what they're going to have to deal with their liabilities.
And I think that's also, it's a good but yet a problem nonetheless as far as how much versatility this offense and this lineup does have, because sometimes Derek Queen can bring the ball up the court. Sometimes Zion can bring the ball up the court. But really you want DeJounte Murray to bring the ball up the court because he's a true point guard who is also a great two-way player who can get these guys in the right positions, get them the best looks, and continue to orchestrate the offense. We do know a couple of years ago that when Zion Williamson was driving and kicking out, three-point shooters had, I believe, near a 70% shot-making percentage when it came to shooting from downtown. You want to take advantage of that. You want him to be able to have that ball, bring in all 5 defenders, and then be able to have nothing but shooters around him to be able to get easy buckets, get easy scoring. The issue is, how do you do that? How do you make sure that you keep DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Derek Queen, Zion Williamson, and whoever else happy? That's the biggest issue here. You can't make everybody happy to begin with, but it's a lineup issue, and especially without a solid guy to be your 5, that is the biggest puzzle piece they need to solve and find.
And I do like the fact that Queen and Fears are staying here and they're not in the Summer League. I know some people were down on that. Look, if they're working out with the team, they're working out with the trainers, they're working out with their coaches, and they're getting bigger, stronger. New Orleans, again, in terms of Fears, if truly Queen is working on his defensive game and also getting in that weight room, knocking off the pounds, those are good things for this team.
They seem like great character culture guys, and when you look at the vision for Joe Dumars, if that works out and they're good starting NBA players, you hope for superstar, and that can happen. But if they're character guys who are going to be like that and be happy to be in New Orleans and look to improve, and you start seeing results, then that can help turn around, which is a big New Orleans Pelicans problem, which is people just don't want to play here because they don't think you can win here, and you don't have the nightlife and the culture here, which is so strange to talk about. The culture of New Orleans isn't attractive to NBA players.
I think it's such a bad outside perception too, because I think the city of New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, loves basketball, and you saw so many Louisiana products, especially from our area, become NBA prospects, become NBA draftees in this particular draft. I think it's the mere fact that players are looking at these games and realizing that tickets are about the same as getting a combo meal at McDonald's, and that's because the product has not been good enough. Whenever you see any team in Louisiana dominating and having success, they get support, whether it be at LSU, Nichols, Southeastern, the Saints, the Pelicans. No matter what level, no matter what sport, people will turn out for it. And I've said this 1,000 times, but I'll say it again because it's the ultimate measuring stick for me. But right before the pandemic hit in 2020, LSU Beach Volleyball was in its 6th season of inception over on campus. They were hosting #1 UCLA. word got around that LSU beach volleyball was doing very great and they were a highly ranked team. They broke the record for highest attendance at a beach volleyball college game. And so that lets you know, no matter what it is, Louisianians will turn out for it. Well, the reason people aren't turning out to these Pelicans games unless there are superstars in town is because there's nothing to turn out for.
That's right.
And so you give them a product they really want to watch, I guarantee you that will give them better attraction than they need.
And that's
Talk
been
about
proven,
differences in,
right?
in brand, by the way, from the LSU brand and the Pelicans brand in sports.
Yeah, big. But Jared, your point is well taken. We've seen it. We've seen, again, people turn out for basketball in this town when there's something to watch. Okay, and that's on the organization to deliver a winner. All right, let's talk about LSU football. Lane Kiffin with a total turnover of his roster, a lot of money spent on this roster, and a lot of expectations on this roster as well. Your thoughts?
Well, I want to know if he's going to be a good boy at media days or if he's going to give us stuff to talk about.
You know-
I'm rooting
you know-
for the latter.
you know what he's gonna
and I
do.
know you are too.
You know what he's going to do.
I'm pretty sure he's the last day
Yes,
compared to the first day.
I'm surprised they didn't put him on the first day.
Yeah, LSU had been on the first
Yes.
day consistently for
Yes.
years.
I think they put him at the last day intentionally.
So
Keep
they-
all the media there as long as possible.
Yes.
You want your finale.
And he can respond to what other coaches might
Yes,
say,
great
or indirectly or directly. I love it.
Right.
Yeah. Expectations year one, though. I'm expecting a movie. I'm expecting some drama. I'm expecting some fanfare, good and bad. He's going to Ole Miss. That's going to be crazy. He's going back to Rocky Top. That's also going to be crazy. I think, though, we're looking at a team that, for me, my measuring stick for success will be 10-2 in the regular season. If you're spent all this money to go get Lane Kiffin, to literally give him the bonuses he would have gotten for the playoff wins for Ole Miss, to spend more than $40 million in the transfer portal, getting more than 40 new players on this roster, the best roster money could buy once again for LSU, but in a different rendition of it, you need to do something that Brian Kelly didn't do a single time, and that's get a regular season 10-win mark. He never won 10 games in the regular season. You do that, you get into the college football playoff. I'm not expecting year one championship. I'm actually expecting year two, and I'll tell you why in a second, but I am expecting that year one, they go in there, they be competitive, they give you glimpses of the offense that we've seen him have at Ole Miss year in and year out, an offense that was immediately showing during his first year, during the COVID year, because he said this offense is very easy to learn. So if it's this easy to learn, I want to see Sam Levitt go out there and not miss a step.
Tell me about year two.
Year
You
two-
got me on the edge of my seat.
Oh, well, the reason that I'm expecting a championship in year two is because the championship will be played here in New Orleans. And every time that a championship is played in New Orleans, there's a certain purple and gold team that plays in that championship. Whether they win or lose, as Nick Saban, but they're in that championship. And so just based on history, I'm expecting that 2028 college football playoff national championship game will feature a gold helmet with purple letters on it. That'll be LSU.
Can LSU fans wait that long?
No, they cannot.
No, I can't.
No, they can't. They can't.
They're already impatient. And the
18
expectations is already college football playoffs will bust.
I'm sorry, one second. The boosters aren't patient with it either. You think they're not going to cash in? Right. They're going to cash $40 million and say, we'll wait a year to win a championship. No. Why wait when we can win now? Go get us a championship now.
I see no reason why this team can't because of the talent available, the coaching available. I assume Sam Levitt's going to do a great job at quarterback. I assume that Lane Kiffin offense is going to be amongst the best in college football, and I assume Blake Baker is going to get what you need out of a defense to play complementary football and be able to compete with these teams that you play and to beat them and to be in a playoff position. I don't think you really need to add any more than that. I just think we're going to get the Lane Kiffin offense as we've seen, and we talk about them being explosive, but they always run the ball. And the running game has been lacking at LSU now since the national championship season. If they can run the ball, it opens up everything in the passing game. It's not different from the Saints. The Saints run the ball consistently. The explosive plays will come in the passing game, but Lane Kiffin always does it. And I think Sam Levitt, how lucky are they?
They're very lucky.
The second guy that was the damaged goods. When the first guy, Brendan Sorsby, was the real damaged goods.
I'm glad you brought up the Saints because this was a comparison I wanted to make earlier. When the Saints signed Travis Etienne, they signed a running back who had more rushing yards than their entire team combined.
Yeah.
When you get Lane Kiffin into the fold, you get Charlie Weiss Jr. into the fold. They didn't get Kejuan Lacey over at LSU, but Keiwan Lacey had more rushing yards by himself than LSU did as a team.
Yeah.
So now you want to bring those same philosophies over to LSU, bring that same running game over to LSU. And I think with that reworked offensive line, you should expect something different. You bring back a guy like James Craig, who has been part of very historic offensive lines, the James Moore award-winning offensive line in 2019, a guy who knows what it takes to really dominate the trenches. You're going to get Jordan Seaton, you retain Weston Davis and Braylon Moore, and you have guys that can really go in there and I think maul defenders, but also be great pass protectors. And at the end of the day, I think that they're going to have to lean on the Blake Baker defense early on, which I think will be much more improved because they're going against Lane Kiffin's offense in practice. Blake Baker's defense has made tremendous strides since he's taken over at LSU. Their one bugaboo has been one specific type of quarterback, a short quarterback that scrambles. They had no issues containing DJ Lagway. They had no issues containing Lenora Sellers. But against Trinidad Chambliss, against Diego Pavia, against these guys that are 6 feet or under and can scramble, they really struggled. So now you're going up against an offense that kind of orchestrates itself around that. I think naturally having to grind against that in spring and fall ball will get them going in the right direction to where that weakness will be finally resolved.
Yeah. Let's go to Tulane. Will Hall in his first year as head coach retains most of the coaching staff. Most of the team comes back. Now the upper echelon players on the team were again snapped up by Power Four teams as expected. You'll see at Tulane on a year in year out basis. How good can this team be in year one?
They could be really good because they retain so many good players compared to a lot of different programs. I think Will Hall is actually a really good coach and a really good offensive mind, and it all comes down to quarterback. If they get the play they need from quarterback, then they're going to be just fine, and they should be thinking we can win 10 games in the regular season. We can play in yet another 5th straight conference championship game because the talent is there, and the schedule is very friendly towards that as well. The conference schedule in particular. You play basically all but one of the really good teams in your league at home, although it's a little scary that Army game to start on the road, that first conference game, but they get it off of a bye. That helps with the option preparation. I just think that they're set to go. But if they didn't get quarterback right, and really last offseason, they didn't get quarterback right and they got lucky. They're not going to get lucky like that this time. So if Simons is ready to go, that's good. Chris is an X factor, though, at quarterback because of his athleticism, and that's what Will Hall really wants. He won't say that, but he wants that type of true dual threat quarterback, and I think he's going to get every opportunity to be the guy.
Is that why we're hearing so much about Dagan Bruno?
Yeah.
Because he wants that type of
Absolutely.
that quarterback?
It just fits what they're looking for, and the fact that you can attack with the running game constantly with the quarterback and the running back, spread people out, and that allows you to do so many different things on the college level with the wide hash marks. Hall is definitely married to that as a college coach who's had success in so many different stops with that type of offense.
I think the quarterback battle is interesting because of the way it's gone for Tulane the last couple of QB battles in general. Even, of course, during the John Summerall era, his first year there, you're expecting a guy like a Tyler Thompson to go in there and maybe he'll be the quarterback to get the guys going forward, or a Kai Horton who's been there for forever. No, it's Darian Mensah who comes out of nowhere and steals the job. Second year, as you said, they were not very lucky with who they had. A bunch of one-year guys or upperclassmen who just really weren't cutting it. All of a sudden, you get a good shot and you get a guy in there out of BYU to go in there and lead you to your next American Conference Championship title. Now you look at it, and maybe Caden Simons, from the experience of last year, will be able to take a step forward. Maybe Chris Grimion, because he was injured, got to be a more polished passer. And now, when he's healthy, his dual threat ability will really shine. Or maybe we once again get a surprise, and a guy who's been in the program, been uptown, been in New Orleans, and Dagan Bruno steals the show like he did on the back end of training camp for the spring session. He'll come in for the fall, and maybe he takes that job. So I think between Chris Grimion and Dagan Bruno, that's something I'm going to hitch my wagon to.
Okay.
And I do think that Dagan Bruno, if he steps in there, we know he knows how to run an option-based offense. We know that just hearing from like a Sam Howard a couple of years ago, how Dagan Bruno's playing in practice prepared them for some of their opponents because that's how great he was against them. I think that a Dagan Bruno would really lead this team in a very unique and dominant way.
It's really simple. It's easy to challenge defenses if they're so worried about East and West. That opens up North and South because you're spreading them out and they're coming up. And you need a quarterback that can do that for this type of offense. And I don't think you have the great arm strength. So you have to bring defenses up with your speed and ability to challenge on the edges, sideline to sideline. That's, again, why that dual threat quarterback is so important. And particularly, I think, with what Hall wants to do.
Can this team challenge for an American American Conference Championship
Absolutely.
again.
Yes.
Sure it can. Again, if they get good quarterback play, just solid middle of the pack in the conference and turnover reverse quarterback play, their defense, they have speed and depth from front to back. And they have a great core of running backs.
Yes,
they should be able to run
do.
the football. It is interesting, though. Great article on CrescentCitySports.com. Renee Nato does it every year on offensive line sizes. Tulane's got the smallest offensive line in the country, the expected starters.
Right.
So, again, it's about speed. That tells you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you made the biggest point here is having turnover reverse quarterbacks. Jacob Retzloff was a great rushing touchdown quarterback threat. He was able to spur the defenses because they knew if they left it open, those +1 runs were going to break them apart. If you get a quarterback who goes in there and he's able to not just game manage, but to be efficient with it, not turn the ball over very much, be single digits in that for the year, and make sure this offense stays ahead of the chains, ahead of the sticks, I think you're going to have another year where they should be able to compete and not only to play in, but to host the American Conference Championship game once again. We saw the way that this offense was able to hum when they had the right guys in there to be able to play quarterback. I think going forward, it will rely on that simply because, again, speed. That offensive line won't be mauling people over unless we keep into mind that sometimes muscle mass doesn't equate to muscle density. Those small guys might still be able to knock you over. And so maybe they have the speed there that they need, and that will also be complemented by some strength we just can't see with the naked eye.
I agree with both of you guys. I think this team has some great speed. You look at what they've done at wide receiver as well, and I think that's the way they're going to win in the American going forward. Jared Paul Joseph, Jude Young, thanks so much for being with us here on Inside New Orleans Sports. All right, folks, again, thank you so much for tuning in. There's a QR code on your screen that will take you to WLAE-TV YouTube channel, also to my website, ericasher.com. So many ways to catch our program. WLAE-TV, WLAE-TV2, Pelican Sports Television. Set your DVR, you'll never miss the show. Also, again, folks, want to remind everybody again that you catch me on the radio, 106.7 The Ticket. That is 4 to 6 weekdays, 6 to 7 for Jude Young. And of course, you can listen at our app, 106.7 The Ticket app, 106.7 The Ticket on their website as well, and of course at ericasher.com. Also want to thank all the underwriters who make our show possible. Please support our underwriters, and of course the folks here at WLAE-TV who produce our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alex Chacon, also Doug Simino, and the best director on the planet, William Hill. I'm Eric Asher for Jude and also for Jared. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching.
If you are somebody who is struggling, or if you know somebody who is, you're in the right place.
Thursdays at 2:30 p.m.
It's sensory overload.
We seem to be seeing bigger and longer lasting blooms.
This disease is unprecedented.
It's quite beautiful and melodic.
Fridays at 7:30 p.m. We're local and enlightening.